Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid. Redress the past, or reach out to the gettable white voter who says, you know what, I'd like a shot at getting in the pot business. But to do that, our entire audience.
Have you ever noticed how the Democrats just keep finding new and creative ways to shoot themselves in the foot? They're Olympic-level experts at alienating their own voters. Bill Maher, who, let's be real, has made a career out of being a smug liberal, just tore into them on his show, and honestly, he's not wrong. So, let's talk about this whole Latinx disaster. Remember when the woke crowd tried to rebrand every Latino in America as Latinx? They shoved it into speeches, campaigns, classrooms, basically everywhere. The actual Latino community responded with a collective eye roll. Poll after poll showed that the majority hated it, didn't use it, and didn't want it. Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out and said, nope, not for us. Yet AOC and her woke squad keep defending it like it's the hill they want to die on. And here's the kicker, AOC's excuse is that gender is fluid and language is fluid. Okay, sure. But you know what else is fluid? Latino voters. They're fluid enough to switch from blue to red if they feel that Democrats don't actually have their backs. And guess what? That's exactly what's happening. Bill Maher brought up a perfect example. There was this Latino-heavy congressional district on the Mexican border that had been deep blue forever. No one thought it would flip, and then, bam, it went Republican. Why? Because the Democrats running there stopped acting like they were the lawyers for their community and started acting like they were the lawyers for migrants, woke causes, and whatever Twitter trend was hot that week.
Last week, an 85% Latino congressional district on the border with Mexico, which had always voted heavily Democratic, flipped to the red team, and the campaign manager for the losing Democrat said, "We gave up a reliably Democratic congressional seat for no reason at all. We deserve to know why." Well, aside from your terrible attitude, I'm going to tell you why. Because these voters stopped seeing your candidate as their lawyer.
That's the thing Maher nailed. Voters want politicians who are their lawyers. They don't want a representative who's off chasing hashtags. They don't want someone who's more concerned about correcting people's pronouns than fixing schools or keeping communities safe. The Democrats just can't seem to wrap their heads around that. I mean, seriously, how out of touch do you have to be to keep pushing a word like Latinx when the very group it's supposed to uplift overwhelmingly rejects it? It's like if I went around insisting, hey, from now on, we're not calling it pizza. We're calling it flatbread circular gluten units. And when everyone boos me, I double down and say, well, language is fluid. That's not inclusivity, that's arrogance dressed up as progress. And voters see through it.
Their message to you was, I'm an American now. I'm here. Be my lawyer, not the lawyer for the migrants showing up in my backyard. Every month I see a new poll reporting how much Latinos despise the woke term Latinx. It's about as popular with them as a reboot of Speedy Gonzales.
That's why Trump, yes, Trump, the guy the Democrats swore could never win over minority voters, ended up making gains in Latino communities. Not because he suddenly became their champion, but because Democrats abandoned that role. When you don't act like people's lawyer, they're going to fire you and hire someone else. Simple as that.
Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid.
Asian Americans are walking away from the Democrats, too. Why? Because of the whole equity and education nonsense. In deep blue cities, Democrats decided the way to achieve equity was to eliminate advanced programs, the very ones Asian kids were excelling in. Think about that. Instead of lifting up students who were falling behind, they dragged everyone down to the lowest common denominator. That's not fairness. That's sabotage. If you're a parent who sees your kid working hard, excelling in math or science, and then some politician comes along and says, "Sorry, we're cutting that program because not every kid is thriving the same way," how are you supposed to react? You're going to look for someone who fights for your kid, someone who acts like their lawyer.
And more of them now than ever are identifying as Republican. So are Asian Americans, whose support for Democrats is down 16 points since the last election. A lot of that is because, in the name of achieving equity in schools, Democrats in deep blue cities have made it a mission to eliminate the advanced programs at which Asian kids excel. Asian parents said, "Okay, I wish all kids well, not a racist, but I need someone who acts like my lawyer."
And by the way, this doesn't just hurt Asian kids, it hurts every kid. Excellence inspires excellence. When you strip away the high achievers, you kill motivation across the board. Why should the average kid study harder if there's no standard to rise to? Why should they push themselves if the reward system has been flattened out in the name of equity? It's a race to the bottom. And let's not even start on the pandemic school shutdowns. Parents begged to get their kids back in classrooms, but Democrats kept siding with teachers' unions instead of families. And then they're shocked when parents start voting Republican. Like, what did you expect? If your kid comes home dumber than when they left, are you really going to keep voting for the people responsible?
If you're a parent and wanted schools to reopen a lot sooner than they did after COVID shutdowns, or think maybe your kid is getting a bad education, partly because it's nearly impossible to fire a lousy teacher, yeah, you're going to say, "Congratulations, teachers, you got yourself a good lawyer. The Democratic Party's always got your back, 100%. But I've noticed my kid is kind of an idiot. So I may be looking for new representation."
This is the pattern. Democrats keep pandering to tiny niche groups at the expense of the majority. Take student loan forgiveness. On the surface, it sounds compassionate: cancel the debt, free up young people to chase their dreams, yada yada yada. But look deeper, and it's basically a slap in the face to working-class voters who never went to college in the first place. Imagine you're a mechanic, a waitress, or a delivery driver. You never took on college debt. Maybe you even skipped college to avoid it. And now Biden's telling you that your tax dollars are going to bail out someone who racked up $100,000 for a degree in gender studies. How's that fair? You worked. You sacrificed. And now you're subsidizing people who often end up making more than you anyway. That's not justice. That's buying votes. And voters are starting to notice.
President Biden wants to cancel hundreds of billions of dollars in student debt. Okay, but the poorer 2/3 of American kids who don't get a college degree are going to say, "Why should the people who didn't go to college and make less money subsidize the people who did go and make more? You want me to chip in so some liberal arts college can build a bigger rock wall? You're not my lawyer."
The same thing goes for these universal basic income experiments. Some cities are handing out free money to small groups of residents, sometimes even restricting it to LGBTQ+ participants. And again, I've got nothing against helping people in need, but when you single out one identity group for benefits, you're basically telling everyone else, "Sorry, you don't matter as much." Democrats have made pandering to the LGBTQ+ community their political love language. Every speech, every policy, every performative stunt feels laser-focused on that one block. And in the process, they're alienating everyone else: straight men and women, other racial groups, families struggling to make ends meet. They all start to feel invisible. And invisible voters don't stay loyal, they leave.
A universal basic income Probably sounds pretty good to a lot of people struggling without a college degree. And a number of cities have been running pilot programs in guaranteed income. But the West Hollywood program had to be suspended because it was unconstitutional. They set up a program where 25 residents were to get $1,000 for 18 months, but only if you identified as LGBT, the rest of that. Why? Because they need money more than any other people? Because no one in West Hollywood will hire a gay person?
And here's where it gets really ironic. On an issue like marijuana legalization, something Democrats should have owned years ago, it looks like Republicans might actually beat them to the punch. Bill Maher, who's basically the Pope of pot, pointed out that Trump could be the one to push for nationwide legalization. Imagine that. The same party liberals mocked as old-fashioned and uptight could deliver the very thing progressives have been promising forever. If Republicans actually do this, it's going to be hilarious. Picture Maher sitting there, lighting up a joint, and having to admit, okay, fine. The GOP got it done. That would be a full-on identity crisis for him.
When he ran in 2020, Bernie Sanders said he would legalize marijuana on his first day as president, but that the business of selling pot would be awarded first to those who suffered most from the drug war. And you know what? I can't argue with that instinct. The drug war has been a horrendous instrument of prejudice and punishment for racial minorities, so it seems fair that they jump the line for weed franchises the way Indians did for casinos. But it's also what's holding up Republican support for legalizing weed nationally, which would be good for everybody. And these are the hard, practical choices the Democrats have to weigh.
But that's the bigger picture here. Democrats talk a big game. They love slogans, hashtags, and moral grandstanding, but when it comes to delivering, they keep fumbling. Meanwhile, Republicans, love them or hate them, are seizing the openings. They're presenting themselves as the lawyers for the average American, and voters are responding. At the end of the day, people don't want pandering. They don't want buzzwords. They don't want lectures about pronouns or equity. They want someone who will stand up for them, protect their kids' education, make their neighborhoods safer, and stop wasting their hard-earned money. That's it. That's the gig. Democrats have forgotten that. They've traded substance for style, and style doesn't win elections when people's lives are on the line.
Redress the past, or reach out to the gettable white voter who says, you know what, I'd like a shot at getting in the pot business. But to do that, our entire audience.
So yeah, Bill Maher isn't exactly a conservative hero, but he's calling it like it is. The Democrats are digging their own grave with these woke policies. From Latinx to education to debt forgiveness to identity pandering, they're showing voters exactly where their priorities lie, and it's not with the people keeping this country running. And if they don't course correct soon, they're going to keep losing Latino voters, Asian voters, and working-class voters. They're all drifting away. And when election day comes, slogans won't save them, action will. And right now, Republicans are the ones taking it. So let me throw this back to you. Do you think Democrats can turn it around, or are they too deep in the woke swamp to escape? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button if you're tired of the pandering, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this because trust me, we've only scratched the surface.